All right. Hi, everyone. We're just admitting people in the group, in the waiting room. It's 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We want to welcome everyone here. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Thanks for joining us this morning. While we're waiting to start, why don't you guys write in the chat where you're tuning in from?
Yeah, and if you're a high school student, college student, law student, lawyer, let us know where you're at in your legal journey. Orlando, Florida.
Nice. Arkansas.
College student. Pebbles. Sophie from Kansas, Junior University of Kansas. Welcome.
In Detroit, Michigan, MBA student. Awesome. Nice.
Trying to admit everyone.
International, Ontario.
International again. This is awesome.
University student. Awesome. Let's see here. And of course, California. Hi, Emily from California, college student.
Hi, Tiana from Canada, high school student.
And we'll start at 10:34 to give everyone time to join in. And Meredith, yes, we will be having recording of this meeting later on. So we'll give you information of where the recording will be, and it'll be posted on our social media as to how to access that as well.
Yeah, hopefully we'll post it by early next week.
Yes. Good morning, Rena from Sanland, California.
Awesome. This is exciting. Thanks everyone for joining. Who was at our last session?
Yeah, who made it to our first legal chat last week? I mean, a month ago.
Nice. Welcome back, Torian.
Thank you for joining in again. Yeah, Torian.
And Tiana, thank you for joining again.
All right, one more minute. Let's see here. And
before we get started, as we're going through the session, feel free to write any question you have as we're going through everything in the chat. And we'll hopefully get to all of your questions. Okay, should we get started?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, welcome everyone to our legal chat today. We're so glad that you're here this morning. This session is all about the LSAT. And if I haven't met you before, my name's Taly Goody, and I have my lovely co-host, Catherine Lizardo here.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our legal chat all about LSAT. And hopefully after this, you'll have a better idea of what to expect about the LSAT. As you know, that's called Law School Admission Test. And we have two special guests today too, who are experts in this. And also, but first of all, before, a lot of people were asking about our contact information. So we're screen sharing right now our contact info. So feel free to screenshot that with your phones or with your computer. Reach out to Taly anytime. Several people have reached out to us from our last legal chat. So just shoot us an email and we'll respond back. And now I want to introduce our guests, Sarah Barkowski and Chantel Isaacs from Kaplan. Hi.
Hi, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so We are really excited to talk about the LSAT. It is one of my favorite topics. I am an LSAT teacher at Kaplan. I've been doing that for over 6 years now, and I work with Chantel as well. So we are here to hopefully answer some questions about the LSAT. It sounds like a lot of you are college students right now or plan on going to law school in the next couple of years. So you're thinking about like, I know I have to take the LSAT, like what is all involved? What is on the test? How should I be prepping? What are some of the strategies? So that's what we're going to be going over today. Obviously, we can't cover everything in an hour. So Chantel and I are on a team of teachers who can answer questions. So there is a way you can, if you'd like to do a booking and talk with someone on the team about all of your LSAT questions specifically related to you and your timeline, we do have the opportunity to do that as well. So in this session, we are going over what to expect and what is the best strategy for approaching some LSAT questions. We're gonna do a logic game, which for those of you who have started prepping can be a favorite. And definitely go ahead and ask questions in the chat or hop on camera. That's fine. Hop on camera, hop on microphone. I'm a teacher, definitely used to having lots of questions. So feel free as we go through, if you're like, ooh, I really want to know this, I'd love more clarification on it, just let us know.
Sarah and I love interruptions with good questions. So she's going to be presenting. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat, throw questions at us, and I'll interrupt her so we can like talk about it. We want this to be something where you're getting the answers that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And Taly and Catherine did send us some questions that some of you emailed ahead of time, which is helpful. So we'll definitely be touching on those as well. So let's see here. All right, what to expect? I see we have a high school senior there. It's like, okay, this is a long ways off. We know this is tested LSAT. What are we going to be doing? So first, I'm going to talk about what's usually covered. And I say usually because COVID has upended so many things right now. But what's usually covered and what will probably be covered in the nearest future is we have 5 sections or five sections to the test. So on it, we have one called the logic games. One is reading comprehension. We have 2 logical reasoning. That's why there's a bigger purple section of the pie. And then 1 experimental. So we're looking at about 100 to 101 scored questions and about 35 minutes for each of those sections. Now, things are a bit different in these times is we have the LSAT Flex. And this is the LSAT that you take at home. Has anyone, I'm curious, anyone taken the LSAT Flex that's here? Lori, you have, okay, Lori, you were the one, you said you had prep with Kaplan and Jed, right? Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, he's super fun. I'm sure he's played you some of his songs. I've met Jed in person a couple of times. Really, yeah, definitely a lot of fun. So with the LSAT Flex, there's just 3 sections. It's shorter. It's still the same type of questions. They're not getting rid of any types of questions. They're instead of having 2 logical sections.
Oh, you're cutting out on us, Sarah.
Section. What? Ooh.
Okay, you're back.
Wonderful. Thanks for letting me know. It sound okay now?
You do.
Okay, great. So we have an experimental section where they're trying out questions for future tests. That one, they've also cut out temporarily. So you just have those 3 sections and logical reasoning, reading comprehension, and logic games. So one thing that you'll notice, and we'll talk a little bit about what's included, is there's no legal knowledge on there. Is anyone, like, be honest, anyone thought that the LSAT, you had to know some laws, like you had to go and memorize laws? I would say a lot of my students do on the first day of class, so you're not alone if you thought that. Okay, yeah, so you're on board. You're like, okay, I know, and probably it's one like that would might make sense, or you're thinking about the bar. on TV and things like that. You're like, oh, in the bar, they have to study all of these laws and they have these huge books where you're just, reading all about that and have to get ready for the bar. That's not the LSAT. Anyone can take the LSAT. There's no content knowledge. It's all about strategies. We were talking ahead of time that it's kind of like a game or a puzzle. I would say at Kaplan, there's a huge overlap between LSAT teachers and people who like board games, people who are on Jeopardy, people who are really into like escape rooms, like that. That's your LSAT teacher. That's the kind of people that really like the LSAT.
That's such a good subset, Sarah. I've never thought about the like escape room LSAT teacher thing. It's so true.
Yeah, so that, that in some ways that's a relief. It's like, okay, there's no prerequisites, there's nothing I have to memorize, but I'm seeing a couple people, so Lori, Torian, and then Triamsa, potentially, so they're like, I wish it was memorization. I love memorization. I love those kind of tests. But instead, it's really about how you think and the skills you're going to need in law school and being able to quickly read things, comprehend them, get the important information, see, not with real laws, but like with rules. What are the intersections of these rules? How do these relate the same way that they would relate in a future case? So I know we had a question which perfectly synced us up to this next slide. How much does it cost? So it's $200 to take the LSAT exam. Now there are fee waivers available. So for those of you who are currently an undergraduate, if you're getting financial aid from school, definitely I'd recommend looking into getting a fee waiver for the LSAT. That's also going to help with the fees for applying to law school, because those can add up. And at Kaplan, we also have a program where the cost of the course is lower. So for those of you who have at least a 3.0 GPA and have financial need, we do have a tuition assistance program as well. So just wanted to put that out there as we're looking at these costs, which can add up very quickly when you're talking about them on top of tuition and the other things that you have going on right now. Or for those of you who are out of school, I'm sure lots of other financial obligations as well. So take the LSAT. It is valid for 5 years. So sometimes I'll get students who are in their sophomore or junior year and are just going to go ahead and take the LSAT. So they have that score, they're set, they're ready to go, they have time to study. I actually have a lot of students who are doing that now. They're at home, especially for those of you in California who are extra at home right now. They're like, I have the time to study. I might as well take the LSAT. Those scores are good. You can go ahead and have that set. You can study at home. You can take the test at home. So that we have seen more test taking actually going on because of that, even for students who might be thinking about taking a gap year or won't be graduating right away. I'm curious, when are people thinking about taking the LSAT? Like 5 years, maybe.
Sarah, if I could just interject real quickly, Chantel posted the link to the tuition assistance. So please look at that in the chat, because I think that's so great to know early on that that's available for you.
Okay, awesome. So the practice will definitely be helpful. And Torian, how far away is your junior year of college? Might be forgetting if you told me already. So, okay, and Jan.
Oh, Sarah, you keep glitching out on us a little bit.
Let's see here. Oop, I think we
And
lost.
there she went. Give me 1 second and I can pull up that presentation. There she's back.
Okay.
Sorry about that. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. It's been a fun thing that Zoom's done every once in a while. It's just boot me out for a moment. Technology. All right, so another common question just on this slide is, can I retake the LSAT? You can, I won't worry too much about these numbers. Law schools will see all of your scores. That's usually the follow-up question to that is, will they see them? They will see them. Usually the highest score and the one that you took most recently is the one they care the most about. If you have like parents or older siblings, they used to average the scores more, but now it's usually the most recent that they care the most about. And then what is a perfect score on the LSAT? It's a 180. So I will tell you, I do have a 99th percentile score on the LSAT, but that's not a 180 actually. You can still miss a couple of questions. It is a very challenging test, even with lots of really, really good prep. But you can still get in that top 1% with still leaving a couple of questions because of timing and it being a really challenging test. Okay. LSAT. Thanks, Chantel. All right, so before I move on to do some strategy questions, what other questions do you have about the test itself? Kind of like the registration, what's covered. I know there's a lot. How long is it? Okay, so right now we're looking at that with 3 35-minute sections. So a little over an hour and a half, I guess hour 45. Usually we have 3 35-minute sections, a 15-minute break, and then 2 more 35-minute sections. So a little over 3 hours is the usual.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah, awesome.
So, so I'm a high school senior right now, and I'm not sure like when do you actually take your LSAT, like in your academic or like in your student life, when like at what point do you take the LSAT?
Yeah, great question. So some people take a gap year, but if you're thinking like I'm going to go to 4 years of undergrad and then straight to law school, ideally you are ready to apply fall of your junior year. So you have your LSAT score ready to go by like August, September of your senior year. And then as far as prepping, like we said, the scores are good for 5 years. So if you have time to prep early, great. Otherwise, I would say like spring or summer of junior year is a pretty common time that you go ahead and take the LSAT.
By junior year, you're saying junior year in college.
In college, yes. Yeah, sorry to clarify. Yes, junior year of college, junior year of high school, SAT, ACT. That's good. That's going to take your focus. AP test probably as well for some of you.
So to add on to that, if you you don't have to have a certain major in college to go to law school. That is not something, there's not like a pre-law major that you have to go into college and need. So you could go and you'll be like, I love art history. This is great. I want to study that in college and then realize, hey, I want to go be a lawyer. There isn't any kind of major that you need in college. And so to answer the Canada question, that'd be 3rd year. So you've completed 2 full years. So 3rd year would be junior year for US terms. But when to take it, if you know that like earlier in your undergraduate, like early in college and your freshman or sophomore year, your classes are going to be easier. Like Sarah said, that score is good for 5 years. So you can take it 3 years before you're going to use it and then apply. The length that it's been since you took the test is not a factor that they're looking at. They're just looking at that score. So it's required to apply, but they don't care if you took it 3 months ago. They don't care if you took it 3 years ago. It's good for a long period of time. So planning out when is a good time to test is very individual. But you want to make sure you have that test or you've planned to take that test. Like Sarah said, before you want to be ready to apply in your 3rd year of college, your junior year of college.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about like forever now is for my undergrad, I'd be majoring in political science, which is also a pre-law major. But like, say I don't pick anything at all from the like pre-law major section, I just go and like study something to become an engineer, but like still want to go to law school. Is that fine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that law schools are one, they're interested in, are you a good student? So is your GPA good? You know, And they want, law schools are really interested in having a diverse class, people who only studied pre-law, like political science or, the pre-law topics. That's going to, it's far more interesting for them to say, we have art majors, we have math majors, we have people who thought they were going to go be a doctor and instead wanted to go into like malpractice law, so they have biology backgrounds. So that kind of thing is really interesting for them. And your application is going to be really individual to you. So I don't think that there's any pro to having a pre-law. You're not going to have any distinct advantage over other applicants with a pre-law background. Do that if that's what you want to do, but they're going to be looking at your GPA, your application, your LSAT score as a whole, so your personal statements, how you represent yourself.
Yes, and we are seeing some questions in the chat as well about, how did we think about becoming a lawyer, and some other legal journey questions. I wanted to remind everyone that we also did our first legal chat on the legal journey, where we discuss a lot of these topics as well. So it's a good resource to look at the recording for that. We answered that question to Rafael in a lot of details where having a specific major for law school, you don't need to have a specific major to go into law school. So feel free to check out that recording as well. And if Taly, if you don't mind just putting on the chat what the link of that recording is, that'll be great.
Yeah, I'll add that right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
There is a good question in here of what is the ideal GPA to get into law school, like ideal and minimum. That depends on the law school. And Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm going to put a link here in the chat as well. This is on the LSAC's website.
Ooh,
And
that's my favorite links.
You know exactly what I'm going to share. It allows you to put in what your undergraduate GPA is and what your LSAT score is and see the likelihood of admittance to like every single law school. So it will show you like you're likely to get into these law schools, but you're less likely to get into these. So here, Lori knows what we're talking about too. Here you go. So this is really helpful. So when you're a college student, it's looking for your undergraduate, so your college GPA, not your high school GPA. And then you can put in like your LSAT score and it'll show you like all of these different schools. You can sort them alphabetically. You can sort them by likelihood. So like with that score, what is the highest like likelihood that you're going to be in? And it'll give you tons of information.
Yeah, and then again, it is a likelihood. There are other factors as well. You need to have good personal statement, letters of recommendation, but that is just, looking at those numbers, a good sense of what to aim for. And I also saw a question earlier about scholarships. As you're looking at schools, if you're like, okay, with my LSAT score and GPA, I'm likely to get in. Great. But if I were to get even higher, or I have a really high likelihood of getting in, that's where scholarships can become more a possibility. So that does also depend on the school. And that if you are a really strong candidate for the school and you're well above the average LSAT score and GPA, then that gives you more opportunity potentially to get scholarships at that school.
So now I'm curious. Oh, sorry, I didn't even mean to cut you off.
You're good.
Now I'm curious, when applying to a law school or when a law school is like looking over your application, are they considering your high school years too, or is it just your undergrad?
Just your undergraduate. So in terms, I saw something earlier about SATs is, SATs are important for getting into the school where you can study what you'd like to study, and have a good undergraduate experience, and hopefully get do well in your courses because you're excited about them and you have a good GPA. That's important for law school, but they're not going back and looking at your SAT scores or looking at what happened in high school. So for and just I will say, for getting into law school, LSAT's a lot easier to adjust at the end than GPA. For those of you who are in college, I saw some of you are juniors. I talk with a lot of students who had a rough freshman year. It can be tough. It's a big adjustment from high school to college. Sometimes you might not have been in the right major. Sometimes there's family stuff that got in the way. That is something you can put in your application about why your GPA might have been a little lower. You should definitely let law schools know. But it's also harder to make up and have a really good, GPA if you start off rough. LSAT, though, most students are studying like in the 3 to 6 month range, which sounds like a lot, but it's not 4 years. So you can, LSAT scores have a big impact, and the study time and the window that you're working on that is shorter usually. So you can really see a nice input if you're able to put in the work and improve on your LSAT. Okay, let's do 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll move on to doing an example. Chantel or Catherine or Taly, anything that jumps out?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that I think this is a good time to give you a heads up. Save the date. Our next legal chat is all about law school. I'm seeing a lot of questions about law school. So we will be dedicating a whole hour and a half for our next legal chat. That's on January 23rd. 2021, that's a Saturday. It will be at 10:30 p.m. 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we will, registration, you have to register in advance. So we will provide a registration link soon, but wanted to let you know, please put that on your calendar, January 23rd, 2021 at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will have guest speakers as well from law schools and to talk about how you get into law school and how to prepare for law school.
I think a question, if we want to get into some of the questions here, we have a question from Fatima asking, what's the LSAT score needed to get into law school? I think you touched on this, Sarah, but maybe we can, dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, it depends on the law school. Absolutely. So if you have a particular law school you want to look at, go ahead, take a look at that law school. And then it also depends a bit on your GPA. If you have a higher GPA than a lower LSAT score, those can kind of balance each other out. And then you saw and law schools do want well-rounded students. They're not only looking at GPA, they're not only looking at LSAT score. Those are just really important. And then they also want to see your other extracurriculars and other involvement. I won't get too into advising what that's going to look like, but those are our other characteristics. I do want to answer Celeste's question because I think it's a nice one that kind of touches on a lot of, what we're doing here is how do you start studying for the LSAT? And my recommendation is take a practice LSAT. We have a slide later about where I recommend you do that. Yeah, take it cold, take it timed. I will say if you take it untimed, it's going to be a very different test if you take it timed. So take a timed practice test. Don't stress out too much about it. It's just your baseline. It's just your starting score, but that will give you a really good sense of where you're starting out. And then in terms of going about studying, there are self-study options, there are classes, there are books. We do work for Kaplan, which is a company that's been doing LSAT prep, if not the longest, one of the longest companies that's been doing it. We have been doing test prep the longest. I'm not sure if we were the first for LSAT. So we certainly have some recommendations on things at Kaplan, but we're also going to recommend some free resources at the end for those of you, especially if you're starting out early and you're not quite ready to do the full court press and do all of your studying. There are some really nice free options to go ahead and get started. And then when you're done studying, I feel like how do I know I'm done? It's when you're getting the score you want. It's when you're getting the score you want for the schools you're looking at.
Consistently.
And then consistently. Not oh, my average is, I'm getting if it's a really great day, I'm getting a 161, but I'm usually getting a 155, then you're not going to go in being like, I'm going to get a 161 on this. You want to make sure that your average score, your consistent score is where you like it to be, and then go ahead and do that there. Awesome. All right, so let's do, now I want everyone, to know that this is going to be, for most of you, probably a little challenging. I hope also a little fun, but nothing to be stressed out about. This is something, logic games, that most people, the first time they see a logic game, they're like, what is this? I've never seen this on a test before. What are you doing? Are you sure this is a real test? And it is. It's something I think logic games are one of the easiest, the quickest, I'd say, to improve on because they're so unknown. They're like, I have no idea how to approach this. A couple tricks, you can get better at it. To get really good at it takes a lot of practice. And I also say that one of the biggest challenges is time. If you had a couple more minutes for these games, they'd be a lot easier, but you have to be incredibly strategic to get them. But in terms of just initially seeing that improvement, that's something that a lot of you are going to be able to do. All right, so for the logic games, we are going to go ahead and just see this game.
Pause really fast, Sarah?
Absolutely.
So again, logic games is an entire 35-minute section on the LSAT, just to give context again, because I know a lot of, like, we're coming in and throwing all this LSAT information. These types of questions make up 35 minutes of this test. So getting a good strategy down for these is what we're covering right now. That's all I wanted to pop in and give that context one more time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so yes, this is a third of it. Not all the tests is going to look like this. That's a great reminder, but this is, one of them, and one that I think they're fun. They're fun little problems. So we just look at that top paragraph to start. That's what we call our overview. We're just looking at that top part, and they're giving us a situation. And this could be, here we have executives. It could be clothes for the week. It could be the lunches. It could be nurses, it could be astronauts, it could be a variety of things, but we're trying to organize various groups of people or objects or items. So that's what we're doing here. So we have 5 executives and they're going to visit 3 plants. Okay, we learned that, we're like, okay. And then at least one of these executives are going to, each site will get at least one person visiting. And each executive is only going to visit one of these sites. And they're going to be on 3 different days. So just that part, we're like, okay, how would you, if you were the executive, or sorry, you were the executive's boss, how would you give them their schedule? How would you like diagram that out? What would that look like? Either in the chat or feel free to come on mic. How would you go ahead and give them their schedule once you have it figured out? I know I asked a big question. Anyone give it a stab?
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah.
So there are 5 executives and there are only 3 manufacturing plants.
Mm-hmm.
So it says each site will be visited by at least one of the executives, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that other people can repeat it, right? Like if I've already, okay.
Mm-hmm. That's a great observation. I think my question, actually, I'm thinking it might not have been as clear. Okay, so we have our 3 sites. So if I was their boss, I'd be like, okay, here's the list. I have 3 sites, and then I know that at least one person is going to these different ones. So I'm like, okay, I could go ahead and put it, I'd be like, okay, here are the different sites, and I'm going to write in who's going to each one. Okay. Problem with that, though, is I don't have my order. So I'm like, okay, let me go ahead, try again. And this is what you do when you're doing your logic games the first time. You're like, okay, I'm going to have my 1, 2, and 3. And then I can go ahead and put on my sites. This is what we do. We kind of do a little sketch. Farmington, Homestead, Morningside. And then I'm going to do another line. And then I can go ahead and have my executives. And for those of you who might be wondering, on the LSAT, either at home or in the testing center, you will have pencil and paper. So that way you can go ahead and sketch this out, because this would be a lot to keep in your head. And if you're trying to do it without doing any sketches, it's probably not going to go very well. So the first thing you see a game like this is you're like, let's get this out of me trying to move things in my head and be able to move things on paper where it can start visualizing what's going on there.
Sarah, quick question about
Yeah.
the scratch paper you're talking about. With COVID that they're doing the LSAT flex, are they allowing scratch paper as well? The reason I asked is for the bar, they don't allow scratch paper.
Yeah, no, for the LSAT flex they do. They're going to ask that you have to show the proctor your scratch paper. And then you want to make sure that you have a pencil that's clear. It's not like mechanical pencils. You could like have secret answers in there, but just like regular pencil, big eraser, and you're good to go.
So now,
Mhm.
what is this logic game like testing? Like what part are you, I don't know how to word my question, but I don't know if you understand what I meant. Like what
Yeah.
are they trying to identify from your knowledge by giving you these sets of questions?
Yeah, so they're testing your logic. I think your ability to make deductions is a big part of it. So if we have these 4 rules, these are similar to if you had various laws that are worded very specifically. And if you can, interpret how would these intersect, and without making assumptions about them, without confusing exactly what they're saying, what are some conclusions that you can draw by combining these rules to make deductions, without having to give you law knowledge to do that.
Yeah, and I wanted to remind everyone, Taly and I, obviously have practiced law for a long time. I've been practicing law for 15 years, and I can tell you that the skills that LSAT is testing you does not automatically mean that if you don't master them, you're not going to be a good lawyer. So, and I'm saying that now because if any of you are looking at these questions and thinking, oh my God, I can't understand this question, I'm not going to be a good lawyer, I'm not going to get into a good law school, please don't think it that way, because your score in LSAT does not reflect what kind of law student you will be in law school and what kind of lawyer you will be when you start practicing. So I've known a lot of lawyers, great lawyers, who didn't do well in LSAT, but they did well in law school and they're great lawyers. And I have to say, LSAT was not my favorite test going into law school, but I did really well in law school. I graduated with honors and I'm doing really well as an attorney as well. And so do not think that LSAT score will be a reflection of who you are. It won't be your identity as a lawyer. So just think of it that way when you're looking at these questions and starting to feel overwhelmed right now, okay?
Yeah.
I have
And
a
yeah, so,
question. Oops, sorry.
yeah, I just want to add on to that quickly that your LSAT score is a reflection of certain skills that they're testing. And those skills, I think, do have some correlation to what they want to see, especially for first year law school, but they are not the only skills. There are a lot of other really important skills that you can have. And everything on the LSAT is a practicable skill. It's nothing with like innate intelligence or who you are as a person. It is how much you have practiced these specific skills. And for some people, they've been practicing these skills. I mentioned earlier, like if you're really into board games, like I am, like you've been practicing these skills without thinking about it. Like I'm talking about the intense board games. You've been practicing these without thinking about it. And you might be like, oh, I'm naturally good at the LSAT. It's like, no, I'm naturally good at these skills that they're testing. But for those of you who are not naturally good, it just means you need to practice. And that's what this course does. And that's what the books do, or the resources we'll talk about. That's what they do, is they help you get better at them. A question though?
Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
I just had, first off, nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the answers that we can choose from on for example, the logic game section, is there one clear answer, or is there a bunch of answers that could work? But you get what I'm saying?
I do, 100%. I have a lot of times students are like, these both seem equally right. I promise once you like understand the language of the LSAT and like how the test writers think, there is one answer. There is absolutely one answer. The rest are definitely wrong, and there is one that's definitely right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead, actually, it's really great questions. If you guys like, there's definitely some free practice ones, and like, I think actually this one we have a video somewhere. So we're gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna do a quick one on this one, because I wanna get to some other stuff too. Go ahead.
I'm going to share the link that I shared earlier one more time. There is a whole video on logic games at this link if anyone's interested in watching this afterwards, just to get some more like taste test of it. You might see some of these games in there because the LSAC is very strict about what games you can share. So they're like, you're only limited to these ones. So you might see some repeats, but understanding and seeing it multiple times will be helpful.
All right, so this is my sketch. You might be like, what is this? But I promise that with practice, you would get a sketch that looks similar to this. It doesn't have to be exact. Everyone's sketches are gonna look a little different. I could sketch a game, Chantella could sketch a game. We could both get the right answer in the time we needed, but we might have different sketches, completely okay. But you're gonna see some key similarities. So in this one, I'm like, I read these rules, I combine them both on the paper in my head, and that leads to certain conclusions. And then I combine them even more, just looking on this side of the screen. And then they're asking which of the following must be true. So ignoring everything else. And we're like, what must be true based on my sketch? There's some steps we would take to get to this sketch, but once we're at the sketch, it's really quick to get to the question. If I just looked at this question and said, what must be true after reading all those rules and not sketching out, that would be really tough. And I can see that, so first is F is before M, and we're like, sometimes F is before M, but in this case, it's not. No, we won't do that one. Vandekar before Rodriguez, no, not that one. One of the first two site visits includes Sasada. And we're like, that's leading to some interesting deductions there. Oh, a long time since a logic game. Oh, so, and then we're like, actually the S can go with the V, so maybe not. Then we look at, so not to get too off track, D has the second site visit includes at least 2 of them. We're like, oh, in this one, we can't have that. At least one of the first 2 site visits includes only one of the executives. Aha, there's our answer there. And I won't get into too much, but the thing is we sketch it out and then we're able to get to the questions really, really quickly. All right, so I just want to go over a little bit on how to prep. So go back here. Okay, so how to practice. Like I said, take a practice test cold. It's just your starting spot. It's something you can definitely improve on. There's 2 free practice tests available from the LSAC. That's the company you'll take the actual LSAT with. There's also, I highly recommend that when you're within a year from prepping, that you pay the $99 or you get a fee waiver and you get the other $70. One of the really great things about the LSAT is you only have to practice with official practice tests. You really only should be, which is really nice, is that they have over 70 official ones. So you take the test, you get your score, you know it's what you would get on an actual test because it's a previous actual test. And then you can go ahead and pair that if you pay and you get the practice test and you're like, this is great, but I need like lessons and like a teacher, then you can go ahead and take those official practice tests and take them with you to a company like Kaplan, where we're going to have lessons and teachers and practice and homework to go along with those official questions. And a really nice thing right now is that if you're taking a practice test at home, that's how you're taking your actual test. So you can go ahead and take your practice test in exactly the same environment as your actual one. I saw some questions come through. Yeah, so and just, for Kaplan, like we have some free stuff on our website. Khan Academy is also really nice for free resources. I think for most students, Khan is not all your LSAT prep, but it's really good for starting. Like I highly recommend it. They officially partnered with the LSAC, so you can go ahead, get some resources there. But for most students, they're looking for a little more, oftentimes something live. That's where Kaplan or other companies come in. I know some schools have like LSAT prep, so check with if you are pre-law, like pre-law advisors sometimes have discounted LSAT prep. And then we have our books. So we have all of that. I mean, again, this is not a sales, but this is like, hey, this is what we do. And like, if you want questions on prep, like it makes sense to be like, we have those. But we have some free stuff on the website as well. So you can always, there's lots of stuff that's free or low cost. And then depending on what your student kind of support you're looking for, we have it. All right, so I want to answer a bunch of questions, but I also want you to have more resources. So these are two websites. One is like our captest.com that will show you our courses, but also a lot of good free stuff. And then if you want to talk, especially for those of you who are like already in college and are thinking about taking the LSAT shortly, and you're like, I'm trying to fit this in with my semester time plan. I'm not sure how I should study. I know that I'm really independent, or I know I need a lot of support, or, I've been studying a little bit and the reading comp is going great, but the logical reasoning's not. Those sort of questions. If you go this, you can book me. There's a team of teachers, very similar to Chantel and I, like we work with them all the time. You can book a half-hour consultation with them and they will answer lots of great questions that you have about your specific prep, not just in general. With that though, I know we wanted to leave about like 15 minutes for questions. I know I've been answering them throughout, so we can go ahead and do that.
I'm putting that link for if you want to talk more with someone who's a teacher for the LSAT. I'm putting that link in the chat right here too. So it's clickable and you can just pull it up or bookmark it, save it however you'd like, or you can screenshot this page and be able to reach it there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this time,
go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, as I say, this time of the year is a really good time to talk to us as teachers. It's a little slow. January is going to be super, super busy because everyone's going to be back at school and panicking about their LSAT. But right now, everyone's kind of this like, holiday, slowdown. So like we have the time. So definitely a good time to be talking to us.
Yeah, and Sarah, if you don't mind talking more about the LSAT Flex as well, what should people expect now with COVID and the new formatting and procedures and test timeline for this?
Okay, yeah, so right now we know that's going to be at Flex for January, February, and April. And the LSAC has not made any official decisions about tests beyond there. We have contacts at the LSAC. So I asked one of mine the other day when I think Taly had emailed about this is a question students have. We don't have any updates. My guess though, just as like a person who's reading the news and seeing what's going on with COVID, is I think the LSAT Flex is going to be with us for a bit longer. I think that having at-home safe testing is going to be something that they're still doing. I do know that they need to have that experimental section back at some point. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I would say if you're testing the next few months, probably be prepared for the LSAT Flex, but still a possibility for some other stuff.
And Sarah, do you think that the study methods going from preparing for the LSAT Flex is going to be a big change once it goes back to the regular LSAT? I mean, is there anything people should keep in mind about that, or pretty much be consistent?
It's going to be really similar. The one thing that might change a little bit is on the regular LSAT, you have 2 logical reasoning sections, which means that half your score is logical reasoning, which means you might just want to spend a bit more time on that if you're struggling. But in general, you want to make sure you're studying all 3 sections. So it's not going to change anything for the individual questions. Like for each 35-minute section, nothing changed between the standard and the Flex. So you should be studying the same way.
Great. And we do have a question from Komal. Do either of you have any recommendations for a pre-law advisor or any resources? Catherine did recommend reaching out to attorneys, which is great, but any other recommendations you may have?
We do have admissions consultants at Kaplan. These are a paid resource, but if you don't have a great pre-law advisor, but you're looking for someone to look over your personal statement or help you prep for an interview or talk about where you should be applying, we do have that at Kaplan. But otherwise, I definitely ask around at your school, even if there's not a big community, there might be something. And then, yeah, right. Usually I'd say lawyers close to home is checking with some of them. And that's also going to help give you more information about your personal statement and make sure that you want to be a lawyer when you're talking to them about what being a lawyer is like. But right now, reach out to lawyers anywhere. We're all at home anyway, so reach out to anyone that you think it seems interesting.
I think another suggestion is if you have if you've made connections with people who went into law school ahead of you, so people who they've graduated from your college and now they're in law school, reach out to people who are alumni of your school, because they've been through that track. They know what your school was like and what that journey was like for them to get into law school in the same vein that you were. So reaching out to alumni is another good suggestion.
Yeah, and we've mentioned this a lot. I love helping you guys out, and so does Catherine. So if you guys want, any advice, feel free to reach out to us via email or send us a DM. I am quicker with responding if it's sent to my email. So just letting you guys know, I do have some DMs. I'm still getting to them, but email is best, and it's always my pleasure to help you when I can.
A good question from Sophie here about taking advantage of the long Christmas break by studying. How much time should she be dedicating every day to studying? I want you to answer that, Sarah.
Okay, so and I'm just looking here, is you're going to start your course in March and then test in June. So if you signed up for your course yet? Or are you going to sign up later?
I'm not signed up yet. I did have a question about that because I'm a little bit confused when you sign up and buy because I think I'm wanting to do the online one. And when you buy that, can you wait to start your course and still have access to materials?
Yeah, so what you do is as soon as you sign up, you get access to all your online resources, but then your live class would start in March.
Okay.
So I would say sign up probably in January. We have lots of good sales in January, but early January is a really good time to sign up.
Okay.
And then you can go ahead and start going to channel sessions. Those are live. Using those practice tests, you'll start getting recommendations. So between now and January, I'd say use some Khan Academy practice, and then you're going to be super set when and then even more so, you'll have the questions to ask during your live class in March.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
There was a good question from Rafael about what is the next move to help you in the future. Rafael, are you a sophomore in high school or in college?
High school.
Okay, so for those of you who are in high school, I have it here. There's an app that I think is just fun. It's called Logic Daily, and it's a new logic game a day. And so it's one of those where it's the grid and it's okay, who's in the red boat and carrying this animal and what day were they born, kind of those types of logic games. But there's a new one that they release every single day. And that's it's a free app. You can download it and just have fun with it and get your brain thinking in those logical mindsets. Because it's that same idea of the logic game where it's giving you James cannot be in the red boat. Bill must be in the yellow boat. The cat is in the, the green boat. So then it's called Logic Daily. I have an Android phone. I'm assuming it's also available on iPhones. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
And for those of you who are in high school or early in college, I would say is, you want to focus on your grades, make sure that you're doing well in school right now. For those of you who are past that point, that's not a deal breaker, but it does make things a lot easier if you have good, good GPA. So for those of you who have that opportunity, go ahead and focus on that for right now. And then I think also attending events like this and
Yes.
networking with lawyers and learning more about what it means to be a lawyer, and what I think that's so important. I think that's going to make you a lot happier and know that this is something that you're really passionate about. And then it's also going to make law schools really excited about you as well, because they know that you've done your research and this is a field where you're really engaged, and and there's a huge variety of things you can do as a lawyer as well.
So this might be a stretch, but like when applying to colleges, because my school right now is asking me to make a list of colleges because we need to like get in contact with our counselors and stuff. We just need to have an idea, because I probably want to start like messaging all these colleges next year, my junior year. But do you think like these colleges are going to like hardcore look at our grades with our COVID situation and everything, and how difficult it's been with the online schools?
You're talking about college application, like from high school to college?
Yeah.
Yes. COVID has affected everyone. So I think that, yes, they're going to be looking at grades. They're going to like, all of that is going to be evaluated in that context. But and that goes for law school too. I know that with switching to the online, like the at-home version of the test, and there was a lot of changes, like no one has not been touched by this. So, like that is something that if you, in your personal statement, you talk about like how that affected you, like it's something that everyone can relate to now, which is, as terrible as everything has been, it's a little thing that connects every single human now, and that's something that we all can relate to and share, and be able to understand each other and have empathy for each other. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and for those of you who are in undergraduate right now and might be having pass-fail grades, I know the LSAC is putting something on everyone's application, just like reminding law schools that you were taking classes during COVID. I don't think law schools are going to forget that, but the LSAC is saying like it's going to be on your application, why things are a little bit weird. Obviously for college, each high school might do it a little differently, but no one's going to forget. It's affecting everyone. I want to answer Celeste's question. I put a little bit in the chat. They were asking, how long was the ideal study time for the LSAT? Let me go ahead and stop my share real quick. One kind of rough guide is that about 150 hours is what May students are studying. So if you're thinking about like, oh, I could do, 50 hours a month over 3 months, then yeah, that's about an ideal time for many people to study for the LSAT. Some people are going to need more time. Some people just take longer, and that's okay. Other people, so you want to see a little bit like, depending on how high your score goal is, you're going to want to spend more time. But I would say, in general, somewhere in that 3 to 6 month range is the sweet spot for giving yourself time to study without getting burnt out. I have a lot of students who study for the LSAT for a year, which means they buy a book. It sits on their desk for about 6 months. And then at 6 months or 3 months, then they actually open it and start using it. Which no shade, I mean, a lot of, school's important, family, there's a lot going on. It's not because students are usually lazy, it's because they're busy. But I think having that urgency and having that shorter timeline can usually, be a little better.
Something that I love to say to students is test prep shouldn't be stressful. Test prep should be something that you are able to fit into your life in a way that is manageable. So between school and this goes for the LSAT, your SATs, your ACTs, anything, like test prep in general shouldn't be stressful, but it should be manageable when you're diligent about it. So like between family, between school, between work, between, extracurricular sports commitments, whatever that is, figuring out what does your hourly commitment look like and sticking to that It should not be something that you're like stressing out about, but it should be something that you are, consistent with and diligent with.
Hi, I have another question. I think we're kind of coming to an end, but real quick, I am a senior in high school, but I'm also doing this like a dual enrollment thing. So I go to college, I'm taking college classes, but I'm technically a senior in high school. I haven't graduated, so I'm still a high school student, but I'm like at the end of my freshman year of college, if that makes sense.
Sure. I wish I could have done that in high school. You guys are so lucky that's an option for you now. That
I
wasn't a
know,
thing
yeah,
when I was in high school.
it takes all the burden of like the IB classes and everything off my shoulder because I'm just taking like normal classes while getting college credits.
So
So
great.
my question is earlier in our this talk today, somebody mentioned that like the good time to prepare for the LSAT would be or like the take the LSAT would be like in your junior year of like the third year of college. I'm not too far away from that, and I don't feel like prepared or like I don't feel ready to even start studying at all. So do you think I might be going like too fast with doing dual enrollments and not like taking my college life a little easier? I don't know.
I mean, I think if there's other factors that are making you think that, you can evaluate that with your family. But for the LSAT, there's nothing you're going to learn in college really that's going to affect it too much. So it's about reading comprehension, it's about logic, it's about deductions. So it's not something where having another year, another semester of college will really make that much of a difference for you. You're ready, if you take a practice LSAT, you can see how you do, and it's just studying those skills.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to comment that I'm very impressed with many of you who, especially the high school students, who are already thinking so far ahead and asking such great questions. We really love that. Kudos to all of you for doing that.
Definitely. Yeah, we're so happy you guys all joined us. Are there any other questions that we should address at this point?
Yeah, and as you're typing your questions, if you can see on the screen share, the next two legal chats that we have the first one is all about law school that we mentioned earlier. It's on January 23rd, same time, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the second one, following that, we'll have all about the bar on February 6th. Because they're 2 weeks apart, that's why we wanted to let you know about these events right now. And we'll have information as to how you can register. You'll have the Zoom ID and use Zoom ID again, and also register in advance. And in the registration, you can actually type in your questions that you'd like us to answer for the webinar itself. So keep an eye on these 2 dates and save them. We're planning to have speakers from law schools, hopefully some law professionals as well. So it'll be a good informative session again.
Yes, definitely.
Before we end, I have a small question real quick. I put it on the chat also. So after you give the LSAT and let's say you get your results, what is the next step that you should kind of expect or maybe have in the back of your head?
In applying to law school?
What comes after LSAT test?
So, I mean, if you by a year before you want to start law school, so ideally by that fall before you start law school, you're going to need to have your LSAT score, your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, that all ready to go. So for some students, you take your LSAT and then you work on all of those things. Other students work on those things, then work on the LSAT. I say most people are working on them at the same time. So it's just you have kind of that list of things you need to have. You do it in the order that makes sense for you, but just have that all ready by that year before you want to, about 12 months before you be starting law school, ideally. You can apply later. You'll see the deadlines are much later, but the earlier you apply, the easier it is to get in and the more chance of scholarships.
Yeah, those scholarships are given out on a rolling basis. So they look at the early applicants first and they're like, oh, these people had great scores and great GPAs. Let's offer them a scholarship. So someone who has a great score and a great GPA who applies early has a higher likelihood of getting a scholarship than someone who applies 3 months later. So keep that in mind with like getting your application in early. Even though you might have like a lower GPA or a lower score than someone, you're first in the door in eligibility for scholarships.
Yeah, and just to add also on timing, a lot of people ask about that. So keep in mind that everyone has a different journey. Not everyone is, going to apply starting their senior year. I took a year and a half off after I graduated from college. So make sure you take time to decide that law school is the right choice for you, kind of learn more about yourself and just take that time in college to figure that out before you jump right in.
Yes, and like I completely agree with Taly. Everyone's legal journey is different. Like Taly, I actually took time off also after college, and I took more than her. I actually took 3 years off before applying for law school. And during that 3 years, I was working because I wanted to make sure that I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to law school, and so I worked first. And was able to get good work experience and good skills. And then after 3 years, I decided that I actually do want to go to law school and become a lawyer, and started applying for law school and taking the LSAT. So do what fits best for you and what's comfortable for you.
For sure.
I was featured on an article for the New York Times, and after having done that, Columbia reached out to my school, and I'm like in their like registration computers or something. So if I do plan to apply there, then my name would already be in their registration offices. But when taking a look like more into Columbia, it's more of a college that I want to go to for like law school rather than pre-law, since it is an Ivy League and I don't want to have to pay so much. So what are some pre-law colleges that you recommend I should look into or put on my list?
Sure. So Sarah, where is that? Does the LSAC have that list of law schools with the most applicants to, or undergraduate institutions with the most applicants? Is that on the LSAC's website?
It should be. I mean, I would say, first of all, I know Ivy Leagues are really expensive, but they also have a lot of scholarship money. So I wouldn't rule that out. I would see if you're accepted at schools with a big endowment, then oftentimes there is money there. So I would go ahead and check on that before ruling that out. And I think for pre-law, Catherine and Taly, I don't know if you have any, where's the best for pre-law? I mean, I think you should look at where's a good school for you, and that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah. So some of the things to consider are location. Like, is it somewhere where you want to be closer to home, like within driving distance, or not? Or do you want to go across the country? Cost. Is it something where you can get great scholarships at that college, or how is your family helping you pay for it? How much debt do you want to be in after you finish undergrad? Or what loans are you going to have to take out? Location of the school also, like, is it in a city? Is it like in a suburb? Like, those are things that you should consider, like, beyond the academic side of things. Like, of course you're going to evaluate, hey, these are great law school, like these are schools that are known for putting out great law school applicants, but those are all factors that you should consider when you're looking at where you want to go. And I mean, hey, if Columbia has already reached out to you, I would, like, when it's time, reach out to their admissions officer and say, the cost is a big factor. What can you guys do for me? Because guys, this is just in life, whether it's going to college or going getting a job offer, money's on the table if you ask for it. Like, the worst thing they can say is no. They're not going to like yank the offer away. If you say, hey, cost is a factor, what scholarships am I eligible for? Is there anything we can do to work this out? Just asking for it is not going to hurt you.
Exactly. And you know, for when we had our session about legal journey, the overview of legal journey for our last legal chat, you know, cost is a big topic that we discussed there, because on average, you're going to law school costs about $200,000 to $250,000. And you know, that includes tuition, fees, costs, room, board, everything. So it's a big commitment that you have to keep in mind at the outset. That's why we're introducing that cost. So I highly recommend checking that recording for that. And we also talked about there some of the things that you should consider for law school, you know, like exactly what Chantel was talking about. But cost, definitely a big thing. And so scholarships will be something that we'll add to our list as to future topics, because that's very important for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, great. I think we're going to wrap it up, right? We've kind of gone over the 11:30 time period, but I hope this has been super helpful for all of you guys. You are all an inspiration for joining on Saturday morning and working towards your future. So thank you so much for coming.
Yes, and thank you so much, Chantel and Sarah, for being here and for going over the time with us.
Yeah,
Our
thank
pleasure.
you.
Bye, everyone. Happy week. Have a nice weekend.
Bye, everyone. See you at the next session.
Thank you.
You're welcome.